Hello, you. It's me. And I have been trying so hard with the thanks of all the info that Barbara Ann posted. Uh, I have been I have been looking through so much paperwork. But the one thing that I really wanted to find out is that Alice Down the Rabbit Hole had mentioned that there were ouchies in the chest. And here, as you can see, it says that there were 6 to the chest. 6 of them. Sorry, I'm trying to get the mic in my face and see this with my glasses, which is why I put it up so maybe you can read it too. And I will admit, sometimes there's a little bit of jargon that I don't understand with these things. But what I see here, it says in association with the 6 wounds that penetrated into the chest, which were 3, 5, 6, 7, 12, and 14. It talks about blood and clots on the left side, on the right side, and I guess I'm guessing the pericardial cavity. I'm not sure. Maybe that's the heart or something. I don't know. So I'm just getting what I'm reading from here. But they said that this was in association with 2 wounds that continued through the diaphragm and into the liver, which were wounds 5 and 14, which are included in the wounds that were at the front of the body. Wow. Okay. I thought that the 17 wounds were all in the back, but they're not. And I believe that Nick himself said that he did 4 at the back, on her back, or back and side. Okay, so there were 6 wounds in the front. And Nick did say that Dee Dee was laying on her stomach. So he would not have seen anything in the front. And he might not have even seen any red stuff in the front. Because of the way that Dee Dee was lying down. And I wanted to point this out. Thank you again, Straight Out of Context, or Barbara Ann, for putting up all these documents, because I don't remember reading this. Now, could I be reading this wrong, incorrectly? Absolutely. But I don't think so. And even Alice Down the Rabbit Hole said that she had wounds in the chest. Here it says, this is the autopsy report, that she had 6 in the chest, including 2 that went through the diaphragm and the liver. Nick didn't do that. I think we're pretty clear. Nick didn't do that. So who did? Dee Dee also had a very big cut on her left hand, which could indicate that she was trying to stop the wounds from happening in the front. I find this upsetting. I really do. One, reading an autopsy of somebody is upsetting anyway. At least I find it upsetting, because you just think how horrific this was for Dee Dee. And she could have been a liar. She could have done fraud. She could have done a lot of things. But she didn't deserve that. And it just shocks me that this is only the first time that I've really read anything about this. It was always in the back, I thought, because that's what Nick claimed to do, was in the back. But these are 6 wounds in the front, 2 of them being pretty deep. Nick didn't do those. And this monster is celebrating her release. Actually, you know what? It reminds me of an old Twilight Zone episode where this man comes to this, I don't know, like we'll call it a castle. It was a home. And he met a man with a very long beard who, took him in against his better judgment and fed him and washed his clothes, got him to where he's feeling a little bit better. And the man saw this corridor that went to somewhere where it says, don't enter. And of course, being a human being, he did. Even though he was warned by the man with the long beard not to ever go there. And I can't remember if he told him why or not. He might have. But the man walked in and he saw another man in a prison cell. And the guy in the prison cell said, yeah, they locked me up. They think I'm bad or terrible, and they locked me in here. They won't let me free. So eventually, the man who is now feeling much better, who was let into this home, lets the guy in the prison cell free. And when he opens the door, he looks around and the man has disappeared. And he doesn't know what to think of it. And suddenly hears this kind of a howling sound. And it turns out who he released, who they were protecting and keeping there in that cell, was the devil. And he released the devil. The devil laughed. And the old man with the long beard, well, he's got to go and capture him again. And I believe that the man who was saved made it, a mission for him to help. Or that could have just been my thoughts. But I remember, little bits and pieces of this Twilight Zone episode. And it just made me think, Gypsy made me think of it. Because she is evil. And they let her out of her cage. And what kind of havoc is she gonna do? What kind of horrors is she going to put on to other people? Because, in my opinion, my thoughts, not facts, she is not stable. She is not meant to be in society with the way her mind works, because they will hurt her and she will hurt them. And they want to hurt her because of all the hurt that she causes and the deaths and etc. that Gypsy herself causes. And it's just wild. I had no idea about this. I thought I had read this before, but I didn't. And there's so much paperwork to look through. It's always good when you do it yourself so you can find things like this. And I found this. And I think this is extraordinary proof that Nick didn't do what he thought he did. Nick was the fall guy, in my opinion. And he did something. I don't know what he did. I tend to wonder if he did anything at all. Or, like I said, maybe Gypsy put her hand over his and, made some motions and some wounds. But it wasn't, I don't think, what made her pass away. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I didn't know this information until now. And I believe I'm reading it correctly. I may not be reading it correctly, but it seems to be very straightforward. And we know Nick didn't do that. If he did anything at all, he may have, or he may not have. I don't know. Because I don't know if Nick always knows what's real and what's fantasy. That's an issue. But he didn't do this. So, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. And Nick didn't do that. Anyway, that's all I got to say.